Mayday Parade?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We didn't go to Mayday Parade together.
No, I know we didn't. But I told you I didn't stay for the whole set.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, they were touring A Lesson in Romantics.
Oh, yeah, the
Like
10th anniversary.
Yeah, and then I left early because I was like, oh, this is the part of the album that I don't really like. I've now surpassed the stuff I like on the album, so I'm like, I'm out. Peace!
The more I think about it, the more I think Mayday Parade might be my favorite band.
Really?
Yeah. Just overall, this is one of those bands that just, I'm so happy they're not broken up. They've stuck together, and they still make such good music.
I would argue, now this isn't a fair argument, I should say, but I would argue that they're making better music now than they have in the past couple of years.
I wouldn't even disagree with that necessarily.
But I'm also not overly familiar. Like, I would have just heard bits and pieces here and there, so it's not a fair argument on my part, but maybe it's right. I don't know. I did really like Sunnyland, though.
Yeah. Well, they've been around for what now? 14 years?
I don't know.
Their initial inception.
Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe that's a little bit, maybe 12 years, but still, I'm like,
it's a while.
it's just one of those bands where I'm just like,
But hey,
so happy.
we're not here to talk about them.
Let's talk about another band.
There used to be a way to stick it to the man. It was called rock and roll. But guess what? Oh no. The man ruined that too with a little thing called MTV.
Don't talk to me about rock and roll. I'm out there in the clubs and on the streets and I'm living it. I am rock and roll.
Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable? Or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
Speaking of bands that are 14 years old, I don't know how old
Are these guys still
are.
together, though?
No.
Yeah.
No, and I also don't know how old these guys are.
it's rare.
I mean, well, that might be accurate. The album we're going to review came out 10 years ago, maybe even 10 plus years ago, seeing as it's late in 2018 now. But let's see, their debut album came out in 2005. So they could actually have been 14 years ago that they got together, if not more.
Okay.
We are talking about The Academy Is, and if I am being honest, tell me to be honest.
Be honest.
I will be honest. This is one of my favorite pop punk records of when I wasn't in high school.
you were just out of high school because I was just barely.
No, I wasn't
still in
just out of high school. I would have been 6 years out of high school at this point.
Okay,
when
well,
this came out,
I was in grade 12.
I was in my second. I guess it depends when it came out. Either my first or second year of college. But I took some time off between school and college. But here's the thing for me: I did not know this record until well after it was released. I want to say I didn't listen to this record until maybe 2013.
Really?
Yeah.
So pretty recent, if you know.
I mean, yeah, in comparison, I suppose, about half its life ago.
Wow.
Is when I first started listening to it.
Well, I just
Now-
listened to it, so.
Yeah, there you go. Now, The Academy Is their first record, their debut, full length anyways, Almost Here. I owned a physical copy of it. I don't know why. Like, I don't remember when I would have been like discovering and heard who the Academy is and then been like, oh, I'm going to go buy this. Now with streaming music, it's just like, oh, who are these guys? Let's check it out. But I would have physically purchased that record at some point in time.
You went out of your way to get
Yeah,
it.
and so I can't remember what the deal was. Maybe if the artwork kind of caught me, and I was like, "Ooh, I like this." But I didn't listen to them after that either. So I'm only
So that was
really
the end of
familiar
it.
with their debut record and their last record. And before we go any further, we're going to get this out of the way. William Beckett, I think is his name, the lead singer of The Academy Is. His solo stuff, not my cup of tea.
Not so good?
I was excited for it when I heard it was coming out because it came out shortly after I discovered this album for the first time. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm sad that they're no longer together, but he's got a record coming out. And it's just, no. And I mean, maybe it's a grower, I don't know, but it's definitely not my cup of tea right off the hop.
It's not hitting you like this album did.
No. And this album is so weird in how it hit me too, because it hit me with all the nostalgic feels without it being a nostalgic album for me.
Well, I can understand that. It sounds like 2008 to me. It
Well,
sounds like that scene.
Yeah, but
in
see, that's not
2008.
even what I mean, because for me, that wouldn't have been nostalgic at the time, right? Like,
Right.
that would have been a whole, different era, I suppose, of pop punk for me. It's more lyrically, the album's called Fast Times at Barrington High, which we should have got that out of the way right off the hop. We're talking about The
we got
Academy
to
Is
it.
Fast Times at Barrington High. But I mean, the album is called Fast Times at Barrington High. It literally, every song I go, oh man, I can picture this in high school.
Yeah.
And that right up front, not necessarily that I can picture it in high school, but that right up front is what I love about it, because here's something that you may or may not know about me, okay? Tell me to be honest.
Just be honest.
Okay. So if I'm being honest, I have a soft spot. I have a soft spot. You know,
A sauce spot.
a sauce spot, right? A sauce pot. It's like when you're making spaghetti, you warm up
Sure.
the sauce. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have a soft spot. There we go. For teen dramas, like television shows,
Really?
and or potentially movies. More so television shows.
All right.
So like The OC, for instance, is one of my favorite shows.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That
Shall we dive a little deeper?
I don't want to.
So,
No.
so this album, though, I can picture almost every song, not necessarily with the OC, but like being in a television show like that, or even like being based on or the basis for an episode or a story arc in a television show.
Yeah, it's very high school.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of high school. It came out when I was in grade 12,
Yeah.
my last year of high school. I didn't listen to it until now. I'm a much older man. But for sure, it definitely, the lyrics are like, this was written from a kid in high school.
Which is kind of a little bit weird, I think. Maybe. I don't know how
But it
old
brings
they
you
were at the
back,
time.
like-
Yeah, I do find it a little strange, and I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek and being fully aware that I am one of those guys that's like, oh man, remember high school? High school was great,
Yeah.
right? I didn't like every little bit about it. I liked socializing in high school and having very little responsibility in high school.
It's a different world.
Yeah, and just listening to and playing music and whatever, right? But there is something to be said about a band that I always felt like one of the downfalls of pop punk for a while for me was like, I just feel like they're writing about the same thing they were writing about in high school. So that's what's funny about this record is that's A, what I love about it, and B, essentially exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
But it also feels a little bit, I mean, it feels very intentional, not necessarily like, oh, I just happen to be still writing about when I was in high school or whatever, those same problems. It almost feels in a roundabout way. I've never looked into this, and I doubt this is true, but it almost feels like a concept album in a way, in the sense that you could very easily say, like William Beckett, assuming he wrote all the lyrics, which I believe he probably did, but is like creating a character who's in high school and he's just struggling with a girl who happens to have a boyfriend, which is a classic pop punk cliche.
Yeah. Well, and here's why it's nostalgic for me. For a different reason. This album reminds me of, I didn't listen to this album when I was in high school, but this album reminds me of the music I listened to
While you're in high
of the
school.
band. So there are aspects of, there's All American Reject vibes
Sure,
on it.
for sure.
There's Cute Is What We Aim For
Yeah, yeah.
vibes on it. You know, all these bands
Which
that,
we need to dive into some of those.
yeah, totally.
Cute is what. Okay, so here's an interesting little bit about that. Cute Is What We Aim For is a band that I would have been listening to at that time, but not the Academy Is, which is weird because the Academy Is, I was familiar with them from the get-go, whereas I think Cute Is What We Aim For, their debut may have come out a couple years later.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I also feel like there was a couple years in, because they only had 2 full lengths, I think, and I believe there was a couple years between those 2 records. But I didn't follow along with the Academy Is. But Cute Is What We Aim For was like this guilty pleasure of mine,
yeah.
where I was like, oh, I actually kind of really like these guys.
Yeah.
And again, they wrote songs basically about like, not necessarily high school problems where like just with girls and, you know, like
Totally.
always wanting
Yep.
the either always wanting the wrong girl or the girl is with another guy while you want a sort of deal, right? Like the one that got away essentially. Whereas I feel like on Fast Times here, the Academy Is, they make it very obvious that it's, you know, kind of about high school, A in the title, and then just some language they use within the record itself. But yeah, Cute Is What We Aim For. They were I could still put them on and sing along almost word for word with most of those records.
Good album, man. Yeah, so it reminds me of that type of music in that time, even like some All-Time Low stuff. So
Yeah.
the lyrics and just the sound of it kind of brought me back, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was curious to hear what you had to say, because in listening to the record, it's not a fast record by any means. There's a
No.
couple straight up upbeat songs, but for the most part, it's kind of like a mid-tempo pop punk record. And so I was curious to hear what you said. Like,
yeah. So I liked About a Girl, the first track off
It's
it.
a good starting song.
I liked track 10, Beware Cougar. I thought that was a fun song. There are some dips and valleys in the album where I'm like, I can do without this.
Sure.
But the reason it reminds me of those other albums is like I had the same feeling on Cute Is What We Aim For too. There's some points where I was like, I don't really like that song, but other songs were like, oh yeah, this is 2008. I remember this time.
Yeah.
And it just kind of reminded me of like a lot of bands on Warped Tour around that time that weren't metalcore.
Right.
I liked it. About a Girl is probably the best track on it.
I would beg to differ. About a Girl is really good.
What's the best track?
My favorite track on the album is actually His Girl Friday, the track 3.
How's that one go again?
That's the one. It's like, call on a Monday, come on a Tuesday. I just like, I like how the verses are kind of really like, they're almost not necessarily moody, but they have a different vibe, and then it opens up with this really catchy chorus, and then kind of gets back into the. It's basically, I mean, it's literally talking about the problem in this song is that this girl likes him, but it's like that classic, like it girl, cool girl, or whatever, kind of hanging out with a bit of the, like the freaks and geeks or whatever, and then but is always on the weekends. She's always back with the quarterback or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like. It's I don't know, it's kind of,
well, that's another example of a song that is almost like a concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a whole that really encompasses the album.
And that's
me.
what I enjoy about this record is that whether you look at it from song, like one song to the next, as the song's separate, is I do feel like there is a character created kind of in these songs, and I'm like, I can get behind it, or at least like I can like what was the track 2 is Summer Hair Forever Young or whatever. Like when I hear that song, I immediately get images in my brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they just have this ability for me anyways with these songs to do that. And I don't know, it really helps drive home. Like you talk about there being some dips and valleys on the album. I don't find it as much, except maybe for me as you get towards the end. Maybe it's because it's 12 songs and 44 minutes long that there is a little bit of, like fatigue that sets in. But even then, I found there were a couple times where I accidentally listened to like the deluxe version or with the bonus tracks. Yeah. And I found when it got to some of the bonus tracks, like there's Every Burden Has a Version. And then I would all of a sudden be like, well, what is this? It's very different. And so
was it?
Yeah. And so I found that, which was kind of interesting to me, because if I ever have that sort of listener fatigue, it made me realize that, no, I actually like get through the album. I don't remember those last songs as much initially, but when I hear them, I'm like, oh yeah, and I still enjoy them. And then like the bonus track versus the songs I'm unfamiliar with come on, and I'm like, what is this? Yeah. It kind of reawakens me a little bit, and I go, let's get back to the beginning. I haven't listened to them too closely, but I feel like off the top, just saying there's a reason they weren't on the original record.
Yeah.
Although there's a really good,
is a lot.
Yeah,
too.
and there is a really good acoustic version of About a Girl.
I heard that, so I must have listened to it then.
Maybe that at one point on my before Apple Music, I had RDO, or however you want to say it, that no longer exists.
Like, I've never heard of this.
It was like RDIO. It was great because I felt, going off on a bit of a tangent here, looking at like Apple Music and Spotify and whatever, RDO had this social network side to it where you could share and comment on things within the program. Like if I saw you were listening to Fast Times at Barrington High, I could be like, oh man, I love this song or whatever. And we could start a conversation. You get notifications, and I could share music with you within it. Whereas like you get that, to do that with like Apple Music, but it's outside of the program, right? Outside of the app or whatever. So I kind of like that aspect. And you'd get notifications when new music was released by an artist you had in your collection.
Oh,
versus
that's
having
nice.
to go to like, Apple Music anyway. I don't use Spotify too much, so maybe this is something that Spotify does. Spotify actually bought RDO and then just cleaned it out.
Oh.
I was hoping they were going to bring that all over, but like within Apple Music, I know you can go to new music like under the For You thing, and it'll show new music from artists you follow and whatever, but it doesn't notify you. It's not like when you open up Facebook or Twitter or Instagram where you have notifications, right? So I missed that. But anyway, something interesting is on my RDO, for whatever reason, it always put About a Girl, the acoustic version, at the beginning of the album. It was so
Really?
weird. So yeah, I don't know if it was something I'd accidentally clicked and that's just the way it went. But every time I listened to it, it would start with the acoustic version and then go into the regular version.
It's a good version.
But I was saying it's a good enough song that I was never like, oh, I just technically heard this song. Let's skip on, right?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of funny. But so we're doing the King's Court sort of deal. Our champions. Now I know you were so unhappy about this.
It's unbelievable.
It's
It's
not unbelievable.
It is.
I was not overly surprised by this. I did make a mistake on the poll, and I put, in place of Can't Swim, I may or may not have put Blink-182's Enema of the State. No. But the mistake I made on the poll was I meant to only run it for a couple days, but instead I extended it for like over a week. So it's still technically going, and it could technically change. But the last I checked today is that Can't Swim and their record, This Too Won't Pass, is currently leading Bearings Blue in the Dark 55% to 45%.
That's unbelievable.
So
I'm so upset.
that's fine. It had its time. You can't be upset. Bearings, it went a long way.
It did. It went a long way.
It went a long way.
It should have lost to something better.
I did want to I meant to throw a shout out earlier, actually, and I failed.
Oh, I have a crazy thing.
Okay, hold
too.
on. First of all, that's not what I'm clicking on. I'm trying to make sure I get the name of this EP correct. Oh yeah. I missed it by a mile. Where are we here? This is good. This is good listening. Okay. Hold on. And I thought this was interesting because, and I think it actually came out the same day. Now that I want to clarify. This came out. Okay. You're like,
While you're figuring this out, we work next to a car dealership.
Yeah.
And we walked through it to go get coffees
Yep.
a lot of the time. And so I was walking back through this car dealership, and sometimes they play music.
Yeah.
And they were playing
Our podcast?
No. Yeah. They were playing Bearings.
Oh!
I could not believe it.
That's awesome. What's like?
what
Blue
was
in the,
what
I'm
song
assuming
was
it was
it?
like Blue in the Dark.
Yeah.
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 Like the more like.
It was
mellowest.
yeah.
That's so funny though.
Because I
Are
was
you
like,
sure it wasn't just playing on your phone?
No,
You're like-
no, 100%. And I was like, David's not going to believe this, but it was like familiar to me, and I was like singing along, and then I realized this is on at the Toyota dealership.
That's
here.
hilarious.
That's so crazy.
That's hilarious. Okay, so I have confirmed these came out the same day, which is great. I've been meaning to give a shout out for an EP that was released, but then I looked closer and I thought this is kind of funny. So our current champions right now, of course, are Don't Swim and This Too Won't Pass. Right, is the name of the record.
Can't swim, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I said Don't Swim.
Yeah.
Getting there. Part of that's because I wanted to shout out a band called Goalkeeper, which I shared this with you, and their EP that came out the same day that is so aptly titled "Bad Times Don't Last." So just so much sunnier. In fact, I say sunnier in the lead single off the album "Sunshine."
See, I'm
which
already vibing with this way more.
We
Like
may
this-
have to review that at some point.
Yes.
But I would highly suggest, if you haven't heard Goalkeeper before, go on YouTube and look up their video for Sunshine. It's so much fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, you showed
And
me.
if you're a fan of that late 90s, early 2000s pop punk, you'll dig it. You'll be all over it. I believe they're from Philly or New Jersey. Maybe they have members that kind of are from both places. I'm not 100% sure.
I've heard a song or two, and I like what I hear.
Yeah. So like I think I shared even with you back early on, like their the Screwdriver single, the Gut Feeling single,
Yep.
which has 3 songs on it.
Yep.
Yeah, they're definitely worth checking out. I've been meaning to kind of shout them out for a little bit now, but so we're down to making the decision whether or not, and I don't think there's no mystery here.
There's no mystery
Between
Not on
Can't
my end.
Swim, This Too Won't Pass, and
The
the Academy
Academy
is Fast Times at Barrington High.
My vote, the Academy is.
Yeah. And I felt, okay, so if you're wondering, okay, why did we pick this album? There wasn't a whole lot that I was aware of. And I mean, obviously, I don't know everything that's coming out and I can miss some big things. But there wasn't anything that I found that came out that was like a full length that we could review last week. So I went, let's go to the list. A little while ago, I got a list from Reddit of art or albums people thought were underrated within the pop punk scene and whatnot. And so that was on
This
there.
was
And I went,
one of
you know
them.
what? I'm curious to see what Jordan thinks of this.
Yeah.
Because I think I asked you if you'd listened before, and you're like, I don't think so.
Nope.
And so, yeah, we went with this. And I mean, obviously, full disclosure, I've said off the top, it's one of my favorite pop punk records, especially outside of my growing up, like high school years and whatever, right? Like when it came out after I sort of stopped following along. And I still really like it and was super pumped to listen to it. But barring any big time releases this week, again, I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know.
we may have to throw the gauntlet down, and we may have to review The Academy Is against Some Cute Is What We Aim For.
Hey, I'd be down, man. I'd be down.
And just get all high schoolish for a little while. And although for me, it would be get all college-ish.
It'd be high school for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But yeah, we're going with The Academy Is, which I was not surprised with. I knew my vote. I knew what your vote was going to be.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, I have still gone back to Can't Swim, and I've listened to it a couple times.
I have not.
I don't know how you can't like there are parts on that record that I think are really good. That band, I have a feeling that band, as time goes on, you're all of a sudden going to be like, I really misjudged them.
I really doubt it. I really doubt it.
They're going to become your favorite band of all time.
No,
and you're
I've
gonna be
already
like,
told you.
How could I have misjudged them so badly?
No, I already told you. I've nominated Mayday Parade as my favorite.
Oh yeah, you
band.
did. We did start with that.
That's
that's a big step.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I was like, this band is so good.
This band is so mediocre for a lot of their stuff, but then they have some stuff that's really good.
Oh, I love them.
That's fair. Someone has to. Someone has to. I still like that. I wish that I saw them on the tour for, like that they would have come on the tour for Sunnyland, versus.
I wish they'd come here.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like when I saw them when they toured Lesson in Romantics, I think it would have been. I would have enjoyed myself even more, because the reason I went to that show was that Knuckle Puck opened, and I was like, I want to go see this.
That would have been a great show.
Yeah, and so it was good. But had it been for Sunnyland, I think I might, because I like Sunnyland more than Lesson in Romantics as an entire album. I think it would have been a little more pumped.
I do too, actually.
But like Lesson in Romantics, I enjoy the first, let's say, half of it roughly, and then for me I kind of lost interest. And that's why I left early. It's just the way it goes, man.
Yeah, they need to come back. If you're listening, Mayday
Yeah,
Parade.
Mayday Parade. The chances that Mayday Parade are listening, sometimes you never know who's
never know.
listening, which is fantastic. When every now and then when I get a message from someone in a band, like, oh, you reviewed us. I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh, great. But Mayday Parade, if you're listening, Jordan,
Let's make it happen. Come on, you got to come back.
You got to come back. All the way to Edmonton.
Come to Edmonton,
Edmonton,
please.
Canada. All right, that is going to do it. Oh, I should get the important information out there. You can hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/music to my peers. On the old Instagram at David to my peers. One of these days, Jordan. I wonder how long. That's going to be like the recurring joke. Have you started your Instagram account yet? At Jordan to my peers?
Working on it.
Okay. Twitter at music to my peers as well. musicpeers.blogspot.com. We're also on YouTube, but if you ever listen on YouTube, you'll notice something's missing.
The music.
Yeah, it's difficult, man. Although did I ever fill you in? Sorry, we're going a little bit. Well, we're not quite long yet. We're getting there. But did I ever fill you in when I did? I interviewed the band Between You and Me, and
Great band.
Great Australian band, released a fantastic record earlier this year. That's one of those bands where all of a sudden I was like, oh, you actually listened to the show.
Thank goodness.
That's
that was a great review.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Good thing I didn't like crap all over
Yeah.
them. If I'm just waiting for like We the Kings to be like,
Yeah.
hey, we were listening, guys, about that. But no, so Between You and Me, I interviewed them, and then I put together the interview. I had music at the beginning and at the end, because that's the thing. YouTube, I just eliminate the music because I face copyright claims all the time, and it's
Yeah.
annoying. So I just take the music out. Whereas on iTunes and whatever, if you're listening podcast wise, it's the music's there. I think it's a better experience. It's all good. But I only mixed down one version of that before I made the YouTube video, which had the music, and I failed to save the session, which meant I would have had to go back and put it all together and re-edit the interview, which I did not feel like doing. So I was like, screw it. So I just uploaded it anyways, and I was like, we'll see what happens. So I uploaded it, and it got blocked. I was not surprised, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put a claim against this. Like, you're going
to fight the man.
I'm going to argue this copyright claim. And then they ask you, you know, like, because you select like why you think the claim was filed incorrectly. And then there's a part where you can, because I think I put something like copyright claim doesn't affect this video or whatever. And then in the thing, it's like you can add additional notes. And I put in, I was like, I am literally interviewing the band whose music I'm using, right? So like, I think how YouTube works is there's basically, it's like computers, algorithms, sort of stuff that's picking up on things. And it's like flags it. Okay, this is who has a claim on this. And then that's who it says the claim is for. But then I think once you argue it, then someone who's representing that company, so the record label, has to probably listen to it, double check and be like, yeah, okay. And then so eventually it was released and I was like, I win, which was so funny.
Yeah.
And I actually found out that the copyright claim was lifted before YouTube even notified me, which was funny. I just went to check and I was like, oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Like, and someone had commented on it, which was funny because I like replied to the comment, not realizing what video it was on. Then I'm like, oh, it's actually live. And then, a few days later, I got an email from YouTube being like, "Oh, congratulations!" Blah, blah, blah. Like, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
on the ball. But yeah, if you do listen on YouTube, check it out in your favorite podcast app. The only thing I think we're not on these days is Spotify, and that's annoying.
They do podcasts.
They do podcasts, and I looked into it. I tried so hard not to say doo-doo there.
Yeah.
And then I was like, they do podcasts, and I still had to point it out. But here's the thing. I've looked into it, and how our podcast is set up, again, this is like getting into like annoying jargon sort of stuff, but it's hosted on a friend's website through like an open source podcast thing, which Spotify doesn't recognize that podcast host, because you have to like basically like be on like Podomatic or like all these different sites where you can select Spotify. And I'm like, well, I'm not about to move everything over there. I'm literally on a site where my buddy's like, yep, just upload whatever. You don't have to pay. There's no space limitations, that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I'm not messing with that. Spotify can go be Spotify on its own. So sorry, Spotify. That's the only one that you can't listen on. And it's really sad. I don't know what their deal is, why they're like, I don't trust these.
Smarten up, Spotify.
Yeah. Dang Spotify. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that will do it. So, we'll see what we review next week. If there's any, big releases coming out, we'll obviously do that. Otherwise, it may be some cute is what we aim for. And
which would be A-okay.
Yeah, which you can hear Jordan geek out a little bit about all his high school days and high school crushes.
Let's bring it back.
Yeah, bring it back. Anyways, that's it. So, bye-bye.
Goodbye.